Ladies and gentlemen, we are about to wrap up this third annual Recovery Sports Skill Draft Party with the Charleston Daily Mail. Once again, I'm Derek Red. Over here is Mike Casazza. Chuck McGill's been here all night, too. And in the middle right here, we have Mr. Carl Lee, a South Charleston High School graduate, Marshall University Hall of Fame in football and track, 7th-round pick of the Minnesota Vikings, 11 NFL seasons, 3 Pro Bowls, 31 interceptions, 2 return for touchdowns, in 181 career games as a pro. And it seems that you're a guy who really enjoys this draft process here. What do you think about this draft this year?
Well, it's interesting because anytime you have quarterbacks like we have in this draft, I like to watch the debates going on who's going to be number one. Like, I don't even know if it really matters so much who's number one. At the end of the day, whoever number one is, he's got to play, and he's got to be good. Mm-hmm. And that certainty that the predictions are, you have no idea until a guy hits the field.
Who would you take, Mariota or Winston?
To be honest, if I was in the first pick, if I had the first pick, I would probably take the guy that I thought was the best player. And I think Winston may be the best player. He's got the baggage, but I think you almost, if you're going to take a chance, I'm going to take the chance on the guy that's the best player.
Now, when you see that, you see a guy who is so dynamic on the field and makes you want to pull your hair out at so many points off the field. How do you balance that, and what can you do? As a veteran of the NFL as you were, how did you guys in the locker room kind of handle guys who you knew had that high level of talent, but just had to be reined in everywhere else?
Well, I'll do that in 2 parts. The first part of that is I would go and look at how the pros act, how the pros kind of come across to people in the news, in public. That trickles down to college players, especially the better college players. They feel like they want to look like and be like that guy that's already a pro. They want to walk around campus. So what they think they need to do is they need to act like that. And then before you know it, they find themselves in trouble, and now they're the guy that's overly talented but's got this issue. Because it's one thing if you get to the pros and then you do stupid stuff once you get there, but most of the time it's the stupid stuff that guys see that they like. As a guy, you think about how the parties are, where everybody goes out at night, and you're thinking, well, gosh, I want to be like that. Well, you start doing that as a sophomore in college because you're pretty good. That may prevent you from getting to the pros and getting a chance to do it at that level. So I think it's an imitation factor. So that's one. I think that's part of what's happening from college to high school. They look up and they want to act like those guys. But you can't be that until you get there. The other piece is that guy that's a first-round pick that does all of this stupid stuff, I really try to figure out what's in his mind. His whole lifestyle, with the kind of money you make now as a first-round draft pick, how could you risk giving that up for something stupid? It just makes no sense to me. And the bad thing about it is it's an underappreciation of what the National Football League is. It's an underappreciation of what college football is. It's an underappreciation of what high school football is. It is a privilege to be able to play, and to treat it because you're talented as if it's nothing is just ignorant to me. And to have to go through 12 years of trying not to make that mistake, trying, and always finding yourself on the fence of it, it's a challenge. Why do that in high school? Why do that in college? Get to the pros, because it's going to be a struggle when you get there.
Carl, I've actually spoken with a handful of NFL people just for a story on Kevin, and one of them told me that there's 13 first-round players in the first round, which is a small number.
Right.
If you think about it, 2 quarterbacks, 2, maybe 3 receivers, a couple of offensive linemen. That's offense. But what he said that I found interesting was you can get some really good corners in this draft, because if you're going to go against some of these elite quarterbacks either of now or in a couple of years, you're going to have to stop the pass too. What do you like at the corners in the draft, and where is that position in general now? Is it where it needs to be, or are they behind the offenses a little bit?
I think the cornerback position as a whole is behind, because I don't know where it's being taught, to be honest. Who knows how to teach that? If you haven't played it, if you haven't really, like Pete Carroll, he was my DB coach. He gets defensive back play. He understands the really fine details of it. Most coaches will say, whatever the coverage is, this is what you do, this is what you stop, and that's about what you can teach. And so to me, the cornerback position is one of those positions that you don't know until he gets there. You could be projected because you run well, your height, your weight, your 40 time, all of that kind of stuff can look really, really good, and it matters not. I mean, I think I was a 7th round pick, but I think I played longer than anybody in my draft, period. So that's just a matter of work ethic and all that, but you don't know who that guy is. You don't know how he's going to develop, how good he's going to be until after he's there.
Do we have too many running backs and receivers who turn into corners late in high school, or maybe they focus on in high school, or maybe they become that in college?
To be honest, you know who I think is the best cornerback? Is that guard that's playing on a basketball team. That 6-foot guard, because if he can mentally find his way into the physicality of the game, he's got the footwork, the hip movement, all of that. He has all of the things that is required to be a defensive back. I've always said a basketball player that has great feet and good size, good quickness, is naturally better corner than I would ever be. I had to work at all of the footwork. They do that automatically. So really, if I were looking for, and when I coached at State, I tried to recruit some of the basketball guys to play football just because I knew they had all the intangible things that I would be looking for.
I asked you who you would pick, Cooper or White. I think I know where you may lean. So let me ask you a different question. As a corner, as an all-pro corner, who do you not want to cross with?
I don't want White. I don't want him. And I was telling the guys at the table, I read something interesting in a report about him, that he was pigeon-toed, and that pigeon-toed would cause him to be not really that quick off the ball, so he would be able to get hands on it. And I'm thinking, okay, I played that position for 12 years, and I faced some guys that were pigeon-toed, bow-legged, not leaning, everything. And the last thing that I thought about was, well, because he's bow-legged, I'm probably going to be able to cover him. I don't care if White if he's a 5-flat 40, good, I can keep up with him. But he's 6'3", and he's 220, and he can jump, and he can catch. My problem isn't jamming him. My problem is him catching the ball. And so that article was like, why did you even write that? Because no corner is going to say, he's pigeon-toed, so I got him. The issue with covering White that I think you can't pass him up, is he's big, he's strong, he's got game ahead of him. He's the guy that has the potential to be absolutely great. Now, he may not, but he has everything that a cornerback doesn't really see. Cooper, there's 1,000 Coopers. There's 1,000 of them around the league. Some are sitting on the bench, some are all pro, some are pro bowlers, some are just there. There's not a lot of Kevin Whites in my mind in the book that's in the league.
Now, going back to corners, Marshall, probably their best shot at having a draft pick this year is Darryl Roberts. Pretty big guy for a corner, and really did well on his pro day. Where do you see him? Where do you see him having kind of the ability to make it to that next level?
I do, and I think for him, which again, this to me sounds like me. He's my height and weight, and he's a guy that not many scouts really look at, really thought was on the board, but all of a sudden, pro days, he started to shine, and now they're saying, well, he can go 6th round, 7th round, 4th round maybe. I heard all that talk, but he looks like, it seems to me, like he could be a guy that could come in and play. Because he's going to be the guy that's going to be the hungriest. Because no one's really giving him any credit until of late. And now I think that kind of motivation with a guy that already has a skill set, I think that's going to be the thing that's going to make him really, really good. I really hope he's the guy that becomes the next great Marshall defensive back corner, that the guys coming after him will talk about him. I really hope that's what happens to him.
When you have 17 pass breakups in a season, what is it that allows you to be just that good at, if it's thrown to you, it's not going to be complete?
Most people don't really get it, but route recognition is the best way to defend a pass. So the sooner I know what the route is, the better chance I've got to cover. He has that unique ability to be able to figure out where that route's going to be. Because it's hard to get a ball that's perfectly thrown at perfect time, unless you kind of know, as early as the receiver knows what that route is. He has that ability to be able to do that, and that's why he's getting to the ball quicker. Because those 17 breakups are not bad throws and all that. That's a guy that's getting in and out of his break and getting there to the ball.
Got about 5 minutes up here. One question for you. Robert Alexander told a funny story earlier that when he was drafted, he did not like not going in the first 5, and he drove down to visit you down in Marshall. I'm curious what you recall from that night. That must have been interesting. And also, you went through something similar a couple years later, having to wait. How did that affect you?
Yeah, I actually had to wait. It was well dark by the time I got drafted in the 7th round. And I've said this openly, publicly, everywhere that I go. Robert was my idol. He was the guy who taught me how to train, the discipline that I needed, everything. I mean, everything possible. So I didn't have a pro guy that was my idol. He was my guy. He was a great football player and he lived in our neighborhood, and I saw him, I could touch him, and he was like real to me. Seeing him distraught, seeing him in a bad place was like strange to me, because he had always been this upbeat guy that had always had some success, and I think this was the first time he had faced really any true adversity, and I think that was a challenge for him, and somewhat of a challenge for me, because now I'm looking at it and I'm thinking, okay, this can happen. This can happen to a guy like that. What can happen to me,